What is up, side hustlers, entrepreneurs, business builders, and dream makers? Welcome to the Study Your Side Hustle Podcast, episode 43. Today is another book review. We like to do book reviews on Wednesdays because, I have this huge collection of books behind me, this huge library of marketing and personal development books, and a lot of them are really, really good, and a lot of them not so much. And so what I want to do on Wednesdays is I want to help you guys to navigate that realm and figure out what books maybe you should be reading and what books maybe you don't need to be reading. So I'm trying to lean towards the books that I have positive reviews for, frankly, so that most of the time, if a book is mentioned in this podcast, you can know that it has the Devin Tracy stamp of approval on it. And today is no different. Today, we're talking about an oldie but a goodie. This one came out in 2007, according to its copyright date, The 4-Hour Workweek. Now, I want to tell you a quick, fun story about the 4-Hour Workweek before I really give you any insight into it. This is probably the only book that I have that will be mentioned on this podcast that has an actual interesting story behind it in my personal life. And that is because this book in my hand, if you're watching the video, is actually an autographed copy from Tim Ferriss. And so here's what happened. Once upon a time, many, many years ago, I was on Tim Ferriss's email list, and I didn't really open his emails. I didn't really follow his emails, but on New Year's Eve, he sends out an email that for some reason I opened, and it says, "Hey, if you're near this area, then I just walked into this bookstore and signed every book in there that had my name on it." Says, he's written the 4-Hour Workweek, the 4-Hour Chef, Tools of Titans, I think was out already. Maybe it wasn't, I'm not sure, but signed all these books, right? So it was like, he just like helped this local small bookstore, which was really cool. Now, I lived in Washington State, Puyallup, which is kind of near Tacoma, which, is about an hour south of Seattle, to give you reference, depending on where you're at in the world. And this was in Oregon State. Oregon State, right below Washington State. It was near Portland, Oregon, in Portland, Oregon, I think. And so that meant that it was about a 2 to 3 hour drive, somewhere in that range from where I was. And I just read it, and I took a screenshot of it, and I sent it to my best friend. And when I sent it, it was just like in my mind, actually meant as a joke, because I said, "You want to go? You want to go get a book?" And I just kind of thought it was just meant as a joke. But right after I sent it, I was like, actually, I'm not doing anything today. I hope he takes this seriously. This would be fun. And he goes, and his response to it is, "I can be at your house to pick you up in 20 minutes. So we went to Portland, Oregon on New Year's Eve to buy a Tim Ferriss book. I wasn't a huge fan of Tim Ferriss. I like Tim Ferriss, but I wasn't the kind of person who would have normally done this. It was just serendipitous, and the opportunity was there, and it sounded like a good time. So we drove down there. We struggled to find the bookstore. It was a hard to find bookstore. There was a very large bookstore close to it, and that made it very difficult. And but as a result, we got there, and I actually got the last copy of the 4-Hour Workweek that was signed. The 4-Hour Chef was still there. Tools of Titan, I think, was still there if that book was out by then. Like all his other books were still in stock, but it's the last one on the 4-Hour Workweek. So I grabbed it and I said, "Sweet." And mission accomplished. We drove home. So, a fun story. Now, is this book worth that drive? So, Tim Ferriss basically in this book outlines his backstory is that he owned a supplement company, and one year he's looking through the numbers for the year, seeing how everything's going, and he realizes that if he does a couple things different, there's a reasonable chance he could take home $1 million next year. And when he analyzes it, he says, well, the actual additional time commitment, not worth it. So he decided to do the opposite. And he said, "You know what? I need a break. I am burnt out. I am done. I'm going to take a 3-month hiatus, and I'm just going to travel through Europe." And so he told all of the people in his company who had any control over any other people's, "Hey, you're not going to be able to reach me. I will respond to my emails on Mondays, and that is it. I'm taking 3 months off." Well, in those 3 months, his business actually had the best quarter it had ever had. So he extended the 3 months to 6 months. And if I remember the story correctly, by the end of those 6 months, he had actually taken home $1 million, which taught him that he was the stopgap in his business. He was the single point of failure. And when he removed himself from it, his business was more successful, which is kind of what prompted the 4-Hour Workweek. What's really cool about it, though, is that he doesn't only talk about how to how to like get yourself out of your business. He also talks about how you can implement a 4-hour work week even as an employee. And so he talks about the specific types of jobs that you're going to want to take, the specific strategies that you're going to want to go through, the way that you're going to negotiate to get your time back. All of the things that he said in 2007 on that front are still applicable, but they're easier now because part of his strategy was convincing your employer that you can work from home. Well, remote work is becoming very normalized after you know what happened, you know when. Overall, it's a really good read. It really leans into like hiring virtual assistants, hiring people overseas, and how to do that, which makes this actually perfect timing. This is really serendipitous for the guest that we have this week. I have already interviewed Nathan Hirch. That episode's going live on Friday. Nathan Hirch started a company called FreeUp. And FreeUp was a two-sided marketplace where people who were looking to hire freelancers who could work remotely would find freelancers who were looking for remote jobs. And so it's that VA world, it's that virtual assistant world that Tim Ferriss really started promoting back in 2007 that Nathan Hirch built this very successful company around. And he grew that to $12 million annual revenue. And then he sold it to the Hoth. For some undisclosed large sum of money. And you know, Nathan's doing other things now, and that's why I interviewed him. Like he's running multiple businesses now. One of them is called Outsource School. And the cool thing about Outsource School is Outsource School actually teaches you how to hire remotely. That's what it's meant for. Very fantastic program from a fantastic guy, one of the guys who knows it the best. It's just so serendipitous for this book. So overall, when I look at the 4-hour work week, I would say, you know, this is a really good read. I would think almost everything in it is still applicable. And Tim Ferriss is a great guy, so I would give this like an 8 out of 10. Solid read, solid book. If you haven't read it, definitely pick it up. That's what I have for you guys today. Can't wait to be back in your earbuds tomorrow. And hey, fun fact, if you're actually interested in learning more about Nathan Hirch, I have some links about that in the description. So with that being said, I will see you guys tomorrow. Love you all. God bless.